Hi. Okay, so we are going to start Act 2 today of Shakespeare's Hamlet. So if you have your book, we're going to start on page 73. And if you don't have your book, remember that you need to go to the website shakespeare.folger.edu. And that's where you can read along. So what you want to do is you want to be listening to what I'm playing on this video and then reading along yourself, so that you can kind of catch everything. Okay, remember Shakespeare's plays are supposed to be heard. Really, they're supposed to be seen as well. So hopefully by the end of this, you can figure out a way to watch Hamlet. I am currently watching the Kenneth Branagh production of Hamlet, and it's actually really, really good. Hamlet, by the way, is Shakespeare's longest play. I believe it's like 4,000 lines or something. It's something obscenely long. It ends up being almost 4 hours long. If you go really fast, maybe 3 hours. It's a long play. So anyway, that is what we're doing today. Okay, so we're in Act 2. If you remember, Hamlet comes home. Not only was he home for his father's funeral, but his mother has now married his uncle. We have to wonder why. We don't know. We don't know if she did it to save his place at court. Maybe she just wanted to be queen a little bit longer. It's possible. Maybe she was kind of threatened, coerced into it. Maybe she was having an affair with Hamlet's uncle and nobody knew about it. And then when Hamlet's uncle killed his dad, well, then now they could get married. Who knows? We do not have that information, but that we, like Hamlet, know that now his mom is married to his uncle. And it feels terrible. It feels incestuous. It feels wrong. He's pretty upset about it. Now, he's not being allowed to go back to school. School would have helped. He could have gotten his mind off of everything. And then his friends, who are Night's Watchmen, they actually tell him that they've seen his dad's ghost, and they can't get the ghost to talk to them. And he insists he's got to see this. If his dad's spirit is walking around on the earth and isn't able to be like released into eternity, well, then he needs to know what's going on. So he goes out to meet up to see if he can see his dad's ghost. And sure enough, not only does he see the ghost, he follows the ghost and has a conversation where the ghost tells him, so Hamlet's dad's ghost says, "Hey, I was killed by your uncle. He poured poison in my ear while I was sleeping out in the garden. And so he killed me. And now he has my queen, he has my crown, he has my country. So all of that is terrible." And that's what Hamlet knows at this point. So Hamlet has sworn his friends to secrecy. He's also decided that he needs to get to the bottom of this. He needs to work out, is this real? Did this actually happen, what this ghost has told him? And if it is, then probably he wants to seek vengeance, right? So he's going to try to figure out the truth of what happened. He's going to act a little bit weird, a little bit crazy, okay? So that's his big plan of attack. So for the next several scenes, Hamlet's going to be a bit on the strange side. Maybe some of the actions of the play are going to be a little bit difficult to understand. So just giving you a heads up, that's what's happening. So in Act 2, Scene 1, Polonius is Ophelia's dad, sends his servant Rinaldo to Paris to question Laertes, her brother, to question Laertes' acquaintances. Ophelia comes in at the end of the scene where Polonius had been talking to a servant, and she's really freaked out because she's just had a visit from crazy Hamlet. So she's really upset by this because her and Hamlet kind of had an understanding. They were kind of dating. Everything seemed kind of good. And now Hamlet seems a lot crazy. So that's unfortunate if you've ever cared about somebody deeply and then they seem to kind of go, insane. That's not ideal. Okay. Polonius decides that Hamlet has been made insane by Ophelia's refusing to see him. Remember in Act 1, Polonius and Laertes, both, Ophelia's dad and brother, both told her to stay away from Hamlet because, she's just going to get herself in trouble if she's hanging out with this guy. She needs to make sure that she's, protecting herself and doing everything right by herself, a single young unmarried woman. Okay, so Polonius plans by the end of this scene we're about to read to go tell King Claudius that Hamlet is mad with love for Ophelia. Okay, so let's listen to this scene. I will pause it here and there to discuss it. Oh, and I'm going to make sure my volume is all the way up. I had turned it down earlier. Okay, here we go.
Give him this money and these notes, Reynaldo.
I will, my lord.
You shall do marvelous wisely, good Reynaldo, before you visit him, to make inquire of his behavior.
My lord, I did intend it.
Marry, well said, very well said. Look you, sir, inquire me first what danskers are in Paris, and how and who, what means, and where they keep, what company, at what expense, and finding by this encompassment and drift of question that they do know, my son, come you more nearer than your particular demands will touch it. Take you, as 'twere, some distant knowledge of him, as thus I know his father and his friends, and impart him. Do you mark this, Reynaldo?
Aye, very well, my lord.
And impart him, but you may say, not well, but if be he, I mean, he's very wild, addicted so and so, and there put on him what forgeries you please. Marry, none so rank as may dishonor him, take heed of that, but, sir, such wanton, wild, and usual slips as our companions noted and most known to youth and liberty.
As gaming, my lord.
Aye, or drinking, fencing, swearing, quarreling, drabbing, you may go so far.
My lord, that would dishonor him.
Faith, no, as you may season it in the charge. You must not put another scandal on him that he is open to incontinency. That's not my meaning, but breathe his faults so quaintly that they may seem the taints of liberty, the flash and outbreak of a fiery mind, a savageness and unreclaimed blood of general assault.
But, my good lord,
Wherefore should you do this?
aye, my lord, I would know that.
Marry, sir, here's my drift, and I believe it is a fetch of wit. You, laying these slight sullies on my son, as 'twere a thing a little soiled i' the working, mark you, your party in converse, him you would sound, having ever seen in the predominant crimes the youth you breathe of guilty, be assured he closes with you in this consequence, good sir, or so, or friend, or gentleman, according to the phrase or the addition of man and country.
Very good, my lord.
And then, sir, does he this? He does... What was I about to say? By the mass, I was about to say something. Where did I leave?
At closes in the consequence, at friend or so, and gentleman.
At closes in the consequence. Aye, marry, he closes thus. I know the gentleman, I saw him yesterday, or the other day, or then, with such or such. And as you say, there was he gaming, there or took in's rouse, there falling out at tennis, or perchance I saw him enter such a house of sale, videlicet, a brothel, or so forth. See you now your bait of falsehood take this carp of truth, and thus do we of wisdom and of reach, with windlasses and with essays of bias, by indirections find directions out. So by my former lecture and advice shall you, my son. You have me, have you not?
My lord, I have.
God be with you. Fare you well.
Good, my lord.
Observe his inclination in yourself,
I shall, my lord.
and let him ply his music.
Well, my lord.
Farewell.
Okay, so that's a bit of a weird conversation. But Polonius is talking to Rinaldo, his servant. He's having him go to Paris and basically kind of spy on his son, on Laertes. He's supposed to kind of find out what he's been up to. He's supposed to go around asking all of his friends and people, like, what's going on. Now, I think this gives us a bit of characterization on Polonius, because Polonius is a bit of a shady, crafty fella. He's not necessarily a perfectly trustworthy sort. Now, interestingly enough, he is a counselor to the king, so I'm not sure what that says whenever that guy is now counselor to King Claudius. I'm not sure he had the exact same position with King Hamlet, but possibly. But now he's for sure somebody that King Claudius trusts, and this guy seems pretty shady. He also seems a little bit, I mean, I don't know if we want to say that he talks so much he loses his spot. But he literally was in the middle of talking and giving Ronaldo instructions and kind of lost his place. Which, I mean, we do that all the time, like in current society. I feel like we are constantly switching back and forth between different things that we're doing. So I think it kind of lends itself to that. But this is a bit earlier, and it's in the play that he literally like loses his place in the conversation or kind of forgets what he was saying, which is interesting. So I don't know, I'm not sure exactly what we're supposed to think of Polonius. I think we can definitely think he's manipulative, and maybe he's supposed to look a bit foolish here or there. Now think, this is the guy who is the parent, the dad of Ophelia. He told Ophelia to basically stay away from Hamlet. Hamlet, who just lost his dad, doesn't really have a lot that's good going on in his life. And Polonius told his daughter, who might be the one good thing in Hamlet's life right now, to stay the heck away from that guy. So maybe it just shows us that he is a fool by nature, and he is highly manipulative. He's not thinking of people to help people. He's thinking of what can every single thing in this situation, what is it going to do for me? How's it going to benefit me? So just some interesting characterization on Polonius. Okay, now Ophelia is going to be coming in.
Oh, now, Ophelia, what's the matter?
Oh, my lord. My lord, I have been so affrighted.
With what in the name of God?
My lord, as I was sewing in my closet, Lord Hamlet, with his doublet all unbraced, no hat upon his head, his stockings fouled, ungartered and down-jived to his ankle, pale as his shirt, his knees knocking each other, and with a look so piteous in purport, as if he had been loosed out of hell, to speak of horrors. He comes before me.
Mad for thy love?
My lord, I do not know, but truly I do fear it.
What said he?
He took me by the wrist and held me hard. Then goes he to the length of all his arm, and with his other hand, thus, o'er his brow, he falls to such perusal of my face as he would draw it. Long stayed he so. At last, a little shaking of mine arm, and thrice his head thus waving up and down, he raised a sigh so piteous and profound, as it did seem to shatter all his bulk and end his being. That done, he lets me go, and with his head over his shoulder turned, he seemed to find his way without his eyes. For out of doors he went without their helps, and to the last bended their light on me.
Come, go with me. I will go seek the king. This is the very ecstasy of love, whose violent property fordoes itself and leads the will to desperate undertakings, as oft as any passions under heaven that does afflict our natures. I am sorry. What? Have you given him any hard words of late?
No, my good lord, but as you did command, I did repel his letters and denied his access to me.
That hath made him mad. I am sorry that with better heed and judgment I had not courted him. I feared he did but trifle and meant to rack thee. But beshrew my jealousy. By heaven, it is as proper to our age to cast beyond ourselves in our opinions as it is common for the younger sort to lack discretion. Come, go we to the king. This must be known, which being kept close might move more grief to hide than hate to utter love. Come.
Okay, so Ophelia describes this scene, which is pretty bizarre. Hamlet comes in, and he does not look right. His doublet is unbraced. He doesn't have a hat on his head. His stockings are fouled, ungartered, down jived to his ankle, so they're like hanging down. I mean, this is an era whenever they have stockings and they have garters and things that are holding all this up, and everything's kind of undone about him. It's unkept, undone. He may be in like yesterday's clothes, maybe a few days prior to yesterday even. Hamlet is not looking good. This is not his best. Okay, so he's looking horribly rough. She says he looks as if he has been loosed out of hell, so he looks terrible. And he gets before her, and he takes her wrist and is holding her arm really hard, and then he's like staring at her. He's looking at her face and making like direct, weird eye contact the entire time. Like, that's weird. Like, I don't even, what? Like, if somebody comes at you and like they grab you and they're staring at you. Weird. Like, that's entirely weird. There's no way around how weird that is. By the way, I'm pretty sure that face that I just made is going to end up being the thumbnail for this one. One can only hope, right? So Hamlet looked absolutely crazy. Then he basically, like, gets up and leaves, you know, after he's been all crazy. And Polonius, now Ophelia was kind of freaked out by this. Remember, Ophelia actually cared about this guy. Her brother and her dad are like, hey, if you care about your reputation and who you are as a young lady in the court, you need to stay away from Hamlet. I'm not sure why they both determined that now was a good time to be away from this kiddo who has just lost his dad and his whole world is turned upside down. Mom's remarried to the uncle. And now he's found out that his dad was killed, was murdered. I'm not sure why that was the next idea in Polonius and Laertes' mind. And Ophelia seems to be pretty obedient. So she's followed the directions of her brother and her dad. That's admirable, but maybe she's followed their directions to the detriment of Prince Hamlet. Maybe being able to talk to the girl that he loves would have helped him in some way. So that's not great. And so now remember, now we also know from Act 1 that part of his way of finding out what really happened is he's going to act a bit crazy. But I'm not sure that you always act entirely crazy with people that you care about. It may be that he's feeling a little bit crazy when it comes to Ophelia. I mean, you can act crazy to an extent, but sometimes, you know, we act a little crazy because we're a little crazy. So, you know, like that's, you know, who knows? We really don't have a clear understanding of how much of any of Hamlet's actions are simply an act and how much they are real, maybe. So that's interesting. Well, of course, Polonius is like, oh, he's so lovesick for you. Oh, I'll go tell the king. So he's using this. Of course, he likes to manipulate and make sure all the people he wants to know things, and he can seem insightful and be in the know, and then he can find ways to use things against people. So we'll see what comes next. Okay, so that was Act 2, Scene 1.